What is happening out there, rotoscouts basketball fans? 4:45 on the nose. Happy Friday, gang. Cujo Blue in the house, hitting it out of the park. TGIF. Hope everyone had a good week. Right there with you, buddy. Glad it's Friday. Heading into a good NFL weekend. One that I haven't finished the projections for yet, despite promising to do it yesterday. Well, not promising. Saying that I planned to. There's a big difference between a promise and saying that that's my plan. But got some of it done. Didn't quite finish it off. Want to go through it one more time. I usually like to put up a version of it, let it sit for a bit, come back to it, give it kind of like a verification pass through. So that's kind of like the spot we're at now with those. But we've got NBA up. Solid looking little 7-gamer tonight. We've already had a few little changes from when I ran this sim. But for the most part, so far, they don't look all that consequential to the numbers we'll be looking at. Most of it came around Indy. So we'll deal with that as we talk through it. But they're a mess. They were a mess last night. We'll see what happens with them again tonight. Interesting slate last night. Not my most successful, of course. Had way too much Quentin Grimes, who went out and shot, as of the last time I looked, 0 for 5 into the third quarter. And just exactly the game that I always talk about with those Knicks, where none of the shots went in. If none of the shots go in, he grabs you a couple of rebounds, maybe picks up an assist or two, maybe a steal, and doesn't do anything. And he barely even did that last night. That one just tanked me across the board. Could be Travis's here. Travis says, what's going down? How'd you make out? Well, that was how I made out last night. But third in the $5 for $1,000 for Could Be Trav. Nice, dude. That's awesome. Congrats. Love to see that. That makes me feel better about my night now. Mamba's here. Mamba hopes everybody wins. Steven Leibowitz is here. Trey's hanging out. Trey got Chipotle, making me jealous. I'm starving. I haven't eaten anything. Definitely going to grab some dinner after, well, probably after lock at this point. Definitely dinner's in the mix. Maybe get a pizza. A little pizza with maybe some, they do a, how's the, like an andouille meatball. Not andouille sausage, but andouille meatball topping. Pretty damn good. It's the weirdest consistency as far as like how the pizza actually comes out, though, from this place that I go. It's one of the better places in Jersey City. But like, depending on the day that you get a wildly different style of pie even. Some days it's thin, crispy. Some days it's like a little thicker, fluffy. It's really, some days it's like undercooked. Some days it feels like they use different cheese. I don't really get the consistency at all. But it is a pretty good place, and the toppings are always great. Trey's got a little doobie dessert after his Chipotle. I'll have some of that going on later on as well. Got to get into the city, too, and hit the dispenso. At some point, I discovered that in New York, the legal dispensaries, 3 times the weight for half the price as compared to what Jersey sells. Kind of a no-brainer. So I now make my pickups in the city. So we're starting up at the top here. Oh, sad day in sports, by the way. If you didn't catch it, Sports Illustrated. RIP Sports Illustrated, most likely. Seems like they're done. Laid off their entire staff. Lost their license to use the name Sports Illustrated because they didn't make the payment, the most recent payment, which sucks. Yeah, it's not something that I was an active reader of either. I was, I'm sure, part of the problem and what cost them all their money. But that was an absolute institution. If you were born, before the year 2000, and you're a sports fan, you absolutely grew up reading Sports Illustrated. Not to mention, way back, Sports Illustrated for kids. I remember reading that when I was like 8, and then evolved into full-blown grown-up Sports Illustrated. And then at a certain point, you start reading the Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue that came every year before the internet. Let me tell you, that Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue was pretty key. If you were growing up, you were a young 12-year-old guy in the early 90s, that Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue came in pretty handy. Tiz had a Sports Illustrated sub. Steven Leibowitz, that side was the Bible. Travis, when I was a kid, I read that religiously. Yep. So, just another institution. Gone, unfortunately, but who knows? Maybe it's one that'll get rescued, and somebody who's actually savvy at doing digital media will pick it up. For all the all the downturn recently, it is still a brand, right? It is still a name. So hopefully somebody picks it up. Could be Travis in the chat claiming to have hooked up with Kathy Ireland at some point. Hooked up with a girl who was on the cover of the swimsuit issue. All right, fella. That's a job well done. I'll give you that. That is a job well done, my friend. So anyway, it's an interesting basketball slate. Let's talk games. We'll talk injuries real quick. Gonna try and get through this one at a decent clip, considering we started at 4:45. Just couldn't get out of my own way earlier in the day, and 3 o'clock ran into 3:30, and that pushed everything back. But anyway, top of the board, Philly and Orlando. 5.5 point total, or 5.5 point spread rather. Philly favorite, obviously, in Orlando. 222.5. Not the greatest environment. We don't have a game above the 238 mark today, so none of those crazy high end games. But we've got 3 games in the 230s, and then a couple in the 220s. So that one's at 222.5. San Antonio, Charlotte, 4.5 point spread in Charlotte. No Wemby for San Antonio. 235.5 point total in that one. Decent target. Denver and Boston, 7 point spread. Boston favored rather. 234 point total in Boston. 7 point spread also in Miami. Atlanta against Miami, favoring Miami. 222.5 in that one. Lower end, but obviously some playable parts when it comes to the Bams of the world. Oh, excuse me. Actually, no. Trey's out. No Trae Young. A lot of Atlanta is on the board. I misspoke there. Bogdan, one of the top plays on the board. DeJounte Murray looks great. And several of the other pieces. Sadiq Bey, Jalen Johnson. So a lot to work with from Atlanta. Misspoke there. Despite the low total, Trae being out obviously creates some opportunity there. Phoenix, New Orleans, just a 2 point spread. Nice tight game. 237 point total. The second highest on the board and the closest point spread. So that one could be an interesting target. Obviously, we've got some star power, some like upper middle class type power from the New Orleans side of things. So it should be a good one to look at. Indy and Portland. We'll get into the Indy mess in just a second. But as of before, that was a 5.5 point spread in Indy's favor, 238 point total. Pascal Siakam should be making his debut tonight for Indy. We've got him in. We've got him projected. Brooklyn and LA. In the late game, Brooklyn out in Los Angeles, 7 point spread, 227.5 point total. And the traditional LeBron questionable, Anthony Davis probable. As far as those injuries, so the update that dropped just before the show, all of Tyrese Halliburton, Ben Mathurin, Obi Toppin, and Aaron Nesmith are now questionable. Isaiah Jackson and Andrew Nembhard are both out. And then for Portland, Anthony Simons went to drop down to questionable. In the original list, we had probables, Aaron Gordon, Kevin Love, who's available, Cody Zeller, who's available, DeAndre Ayton. Really funny tweet from Underdog last night where they just put, if you guys missed it, Ayton missed the game, their last game 2 days ago because there was snow and he was iced in. He couldn't get out of his house. So Underdog sent out a tweet last night, DeAndre Ayton probable, parentheses, ice melted for Friday, which is pretty funny. Mikal Bridges also probable. Anthony Davis probable. Questionables, mentioned Simons and all the Pacers. Jaden Springer, Zach Collins, Bryce McGowens, Nick Richards, Brandon Miller, Dunk Robinson, and LeBron James all questionable. Out is Mo Bamba, Robert Covington, DeAnthony Melton, Gary Harris, Franz Wagner, Victor Wembanyama, Gordon Hayward, Julian Strother, DeAndre Hunter, Wesley Matthews, Trae Young, Jaime Jaquez Jr., who's doubtful, Bull, Damian Lee, Matt Ryan, Shaden Sharp, Daron Sharp, Cam Reddish, and Gabe Vincent. Bo Dejan's here. Mama's digging some Serena. Like that. Yeah, those body issues were always cool when they had the athletes come in. And it's like, you'd see it's just a whole different kind of thing, right? Compared to the stick figure supermodels or even the more voluptuous supermodels. The athletes are just a totally different kind of human when they were doing those body issues. Mamba's planning on buying out SI. I like that. Hey, who knows? I think the guys that they failed to make the licensing payment for, I think I read they paid $110 million for it handful of years ago. So it's probably worth less than that if you got that sitting in the bank. Let's get into this one if we're going to make any kind of good time, which is probably already too late, coming up on 5 o'clock. Going to have us out of here by 6. It's 7 o'clock start, so we're going to need that time to get things updated and to build my own lineups. So the more we jibber jabber about other stuff, the less basketball we talk. Sorted by DK win rates to start the show as usual, just all positions. Bogdan Bogdanovic landing at the top of the board on both sites. As I said, just plenty of opportunity there created by Trae Young's absence. DeJounte Murray, 2 spots down from Bogdan. They both look great on both sites. Bogdan, 66.19% win rate on the FanDuel slate. We're getting to him 83% of the time in the top 150. Both of those, I believe, are out ahead of his projected ownership on that site. For 6,100 small forward shooting guard, there is plenty of upside for Bogdan in this situation. I've got him at 34 minutes. He's a 1.02 per minute player on the season. Without Trae, that goes up, I believe, by about 1/10 of a point per minute. Pull it back up. So for the full season, actually for the full season for Bogdan, that actually goes down. That's interesting. 0.95. Might be a little aberration there. Let me get to something more recent. Huh. You know what? Maybe I have to adjust that a little bit. I mean, he's where he's supposed to be in terms of how the rest of the industry is seeing him, but he was the one I looked at the specific rates for everybody else, and I didn't even glance in his direction because I thought it just went up by 1/10 of a point. It actually goes down a little. Or hovers right around. Actually, I think I did get it. My mistake. I'm misremembering that because I've got him at 0.98, and for the season he's been 0.95. I think it was. With Trae out. I had sorted already over to January. 0.95 for the season, 0.98 on DK with Trae out. So that's where I've got him. So apparently I did take care of that without even realizing it. But I was thinking it was. I was thinking that was an accelerated number, but it's actually a little bit lower. But the minutes go up. There's plenty of opportunity. You can see he's playing 27.9 a night across the 38 games. Got him a handful of additional minutes, and obviously looks very, very good on both sides. 5,600 shooting guard only on DraftKings. 6.15 points per dollar on that slate. 51% win rate. 77% of the top 150. DeJounte Murray goes to a 1.23 per minute with Trae out. That's up from 1.06 on FanDuel, 1.09 on DraftKings, goes up to 1.26. So DeJounte Murray takes a massive leap. We know that for sure. He also looks very good. 45.18% win rate on FanDuel, 54% of the top 150 lineups. On DraftKings, 35.9% win rate, 44.6% of the top lineups. Those are against ownership numbers for both of those guys that are among the highest overall on the slate. Bogdan, the highest overall. This is on DraftKings. Pushing a projected ownership that's close to the win rate that we're showing there, but still falls well behind the top 150 exposure that we got to in the Sims, which is exactly how you want it. When you get a good, strong ROI play like that, you want him to be coming up more often than the field, even when he's highly owned like that. Just a very good piece tonight. DeJounte Murray, same token. His top 150 ownership is 15-ish percentage points ahead of his projected ownership, which is exactly where we want him. He's another good option today. Julian Champagne, just a price-driven play, and it's really only DraftKings. FanDuel, he gets a little bit. 8.6% win rate. We're getting to him a little bit ahead of that pace in the top 150. But he's 4,500 small forward only over there, just giving you under 4 points per dollar. Not a great option on the FanDuel board, but on DraftKings for 1,000 less shooting guard and small forward, he's got a lot more positional flexibility. He's got a lot more price-based value. So he lands in 37.8% of winning lineups. We're getting to him 52% of the time in this top 150. I do think you can undercut that because he's not projected to be crazy high owned. He's above 15, but below 20% projected ownership, let's say, which is part of what pushes him into a high ROI position as one of those those cheapo value guys. But I don't know that you need to get out to 75 out of your 150 lineups include Julian Champagne. I think maybe you can mix him in ahead of the field, but below that, call it 30, 35%. I think you're okay. Spread some of those shares out a little bit. It's just a guy that, I don't necessarily like the idea of getting super concentrated on him. He's a fairly low usage of 15.4%. He's a 0.81 per minute guy on FanDuel, 0.81 on DraftKings. So, that's the kind of trappy spot where, yeah, it looks good. Yeah, the math works out. Yeah, we want to be ahead of the field, but maybe not quite as much as what just taking the top 150 off of a bare sim would end up giving us in this situation. Sohan's also there on the San Antonio side. And then additional pieces from Atlanta. Sadiq Bey's right there. Jalen's right there. Looks like those are the critical guys. Let's get into some of the positional rundown. We can talk about all those guys again. Not much changes at the very top of the board. Those top three names are still all there. So one lineup, I think you could just say, I'm going to take all three of these guys and then work from that on either site, really, but mostly on DraftKings. You could take these two on FanDuel and work from that. But all three of those guys as just a starting point, if you were building one lineup, I don't think there's a real issue with just going to those three. Terry Rozier and LaMelo both looking pretty strong on DraftKings. 29.5% win rate for Rozier, 25.3% for LaMelo. It's been pretty solid since LaMelo came back. Over the last week and change, they've been... I forget the exact date that he came back. I looked it up earlier. 88 minutes for LaMelo. Let's just call it since the 8th is the day I clicked on. I know that wasn't the exact date he came back, but 88 minutes, 1.61 FanDuel points per minute. Rozier in 170 minutes over that spread, 1.17. Let's zero in more on the... So in the last week, since last Friday, Rozier 94 minutes, LaMelo 88. So this is the more sample since LaMelo's been back. Rozier 1.15, FanDuel, LaMelo 1.61, Miles Bridges down at 0.79. Those are the three really relevant guys from this squad. But I think there's enough to support both of these guys. Rozier's been playing really well. He's on the trade market, landing in 50% of the top 150 on the DraftKings slate for $7,200. He's a very different price on FanDuel, $8,600, both guard spots, still at 8.39% win rate, getting to him a little bit less than that. And then LaMelo for $99. The production definitely justifies the price, what we've seen from him in these in the small sample since returning, but that's probably not going to hold. It'll probably dip back down to a more normalized, something like this, which makes this a little bit high. Doesn't really come through the sims all that strongly on FanDuel. On DraftKings for 88, 25% win rate, landing in just the same amount of top lineups, 25.3%. So definitely a play, both of those guys. I think you can get away with both of them in the same lineup if you wanted to, but I don't know that that's my favorite combination. I think I would go one or the other if I'm building one lineup anyway. If I'm building 150 and they land in the same lineup, a handful of times, so be it. Devin Vassell, better looking on FanDuel. Looks good on both sites, but better on FanDuel, 33.2% and landing in 52% of winners of the top 150 rather. 0.97 points per minute on the season, 29.9 in 32 minutes the last time out. Solid 22% usage rate. On DraftKings, just under 20% win rate, just over 20% exposure. I think it makes sense to have him right in that range, 6,700 at both guard spots. He's a shooting guard only on FanDuel. Losing the flexibility kind of sucks, but one of the better overall point per dollar plays at 5.03. Puts him, fourth, I think, at the guard spot? Yeah. Fourth overall at the guard spot by points per dollar. Reggie, just as a DraftKings value piece, he's 3,900. Super cheap over there versus 5,000 on FanDuel where he's not really relevant. At 39, even with, just limited backup minutes, you can get to Reggie here, I think. I would probably put the same kind of a caution on it as what I was saying about Champagne, just in terms of, not in terms of the low usage, because Reggie, when he's out there, 21.8% usage rate, obviously has the ball in his hands quite a bit as a primary facilitator. But just the minutes are not crazy for the price that you pay on FanDuel, especially at 5,000. And then 39 versus the 35 for a few fewer minutes, a lot less usage for Champagne. There's a bit of a wash there, obviously different positions. But Reggie comes with just a little bit of an asterisk, but looks pretty good for the money at 39. 17% win rate, getting to him more often than that in the top 150. So he's landing pretty well in those sims. Simons is now questionable. I said Shaden Sharp is out, right? Probably see an uptick for Brogdon if Simons doesn't go. Let me pull that up real quick. Scoot would jump. I've got Scoot just in the mid-20s, like what he's been playing, but he would take a jump. Brogdon would take a jump. And then it would probably be a little bit of a spread. And Chris Murray picks up a few more in that situation. But the key guys, if Simons doesn't go, I think the key guys become Scoot and Malcolm Brogdon. Brogdon doesn't look great right now, or at least not from a points per dollar sense on FanDuel, 4.14 points per dollar, but he was hitting a little bit stronger than I expected, 14.03% win rate, but just landing in 3.3% of the top 150. So not really a strong option on FanDuel. We're on DraftKings, 17.6% win rate, but again, only 8% of the top 150, and that's similar for Simons as well if he plays. 16% win rate, just 8% of the top 150, basically half. Let's see why that is. Trying to give some context around some of these things. So he was coming up. The projected ownership is right around what that win rate looks like. And it looks like he landed in field lineups a little bit more frequently even than he's projected for ownership. So it cuts into his ROI number. And he just gets outperformed. He is playable, but it looks like not the best overall option. D'Lo for 7,000, point guard, shooting guard. Definitely playable on FanDuel, 15.8% winner, 14% of the top 150. Very similar looking on the DraftKings slate for 62. No flexibility on DraftKings, but a better price against the lower relative cap. Just looking at the chat. Trev, I think asked and answered on that one. It wouldn't be my favorite construction with Rozier and LaMelo in the same lineup, but I think you can definitely get away with it. There's enough there. Who else? Speaking of slate, a lot of options, obviously. Kyle Lowry looks playable at 11.8% winner. Trey Jones, 11.17. They're about the same level on DraftKings. Just 4,000 for Kyle Lowry at the point guard spot on DraftKings. 0.78 DraftKings points per minute. Not great returns. 4,800 on FanDuel at point guard only. 0.77 per minute so far this season. Giving us a lot of clunkers like this. In a price basis, it's there, but Kyle Lowry has become one of these low per minute, low usage types. He does get the ball in his hands a lot. He does get to facilitate, but the buckets are few and far between. And if other guys don't convert on his potential assists, kind of hurts you a little bit. Tyler Hero, by contrast, 28.4% usage rate on the season, definitely is capable of lighting things up. 1.09 points per minute on FanDuel, 1.14 on DraftKings, looking like a solid projection, but not really coming through the model at all, or through the sim at all on FanDuel for 83. 0.56% win rate. He won like once, and a 0.0 in the top 150. On DraftKings, you get there a little more. 11.97% winner, about 2/3 of that in the top 150. Trey Jones, another guy playable on both sites. 11.1 in 9.3% of the top 150. 10.8. 12% of the top 150 across town on DraftKings. Fultz, just kind of an is who he is. Mid-range type guy, 5,500. 27, 28 minutes. something in that neighborhood I think is appropriate. He played 30 the other day, put up 21.3 FanDuel points, 0.86 per minute on the season. A below average 17.2% usage rate, but obviously, another guy who can facilitate. 9.59% winner on the DraftKings slate, 5% of the top 150. I think that's about where I'd want him. I don't know that I need to chase the field number on Markelle Fultz in this situation. Jalen is always playable, but doesn't come through the sim great on FanDuel. A little bit pricey at 88. You can drop him to 84, 85 range, I think. 1.11 FanDuel points per minute, put up 39.9 in 31 minutes the other night. On DraftKings for 81, shooting guard and small forward, a little flexibility, a little bit better of a price against the relative cap. 9.2% winner, just 2% of the top 150, but showing us enough that he can get there. Just didn't happen to all that often in that sim. Miller carrying a Q tag, I believe. If he's out there, he's okay. 9.6% win rate on FanDuel. Getting to him more than that, though. Interestingly, 14.67%. Just a 4.96% winner on DraftKings. Not really getting to him at all over there. And then that would become yet another compounding piece. If you saw a lineup that had Miller, LaMelo, and Rozier in it, that's where you start to get a little, maybe I want to intervene there and get one of those guys out. Miller a small forward only, so you could easily land on that lineup. Steven Leibowitz giving a nod to power. Got him onto some Lauri Markkanen. Excellent. Love seeing the chatter back and forth with you guys, and I love that you guys throw thoughts and ideas. We talked about a lot of different things. Oh, Josh Giddey last night. How about that? Obviously, they had no Lou Dort and no Ousmane Dieng. Can change things around there. So I ended up getting up to, I think it was 28 minutes at the end for Giddey's projection, and then he went out and had himself a decent game. So we might have to officially turn on the Josh Giddey watch. I was already watching his rates, but let's keep an eye on those minutes. If he starts clawing back some of his minutes, but by the same token, by contrast, Adam Silver last night announced that now that there's not going to be any formal charges, the league is going to do an investigation into the story about Josh Giddey. So, we were saying maybe now that that's over, maybe he gets back some of those minutes, and who knows. So we'll just keep on watching it, see what happens. But playing very, very well when he is out there. Just a few incidentals. Some differentiated guys across sites real quick. Austin Reeves, 27.5% on FanDuel, just 8.9% on DraftKings. 10% for Mikal Bridges versus 4.7%. Knicks fans everywhere clamoring for them to make a deal to get to finalize the Villanova contingent. Apparently the Nets are getting geared up to sell at the deadline, so that's one that everybody's keeping their eye on. I would love that. Get Mikal Bridges next to OG Anunoby. Forget it. Love the defense. Tibbs would go nuts for that team. Jamal Murray looks very good on FanDuel. 25.47% win rate at 7,800 point guard only. On DraftKings, just kind of falls by the wayside. Just a 3.5% win rate. 1.3% of the top lineups. One of the more differentiated plays across the entire slate, really. Or at least at the guard spot. That is a very different option from site to site. Derek White, production's kind of fallen off. Just a 27-point projection. Still good, but I think the price is a little high for where what the normalized performance is right now. On DraftKings, a little bit more playable, 2.75% winner, but did not get into any of the top 150 at 6,100. DraftKings has normalized his price a little bit more than FanDuel has. That's why he looks slightly better, but I think we still got a little ways to come down. Neesmith, questionable if he plays. 12% winner on FanDuel, not so much on DraftKings, 2%, and did not get in the top 150. Dinwiddie, same thing, 12%, got into 8% of the top 150 on FanDuel, 2.3%, didn't get in the top 150 on DraftKings. Beal, just a 7%, but playable. Jalen Suggs, 14%, somewhat significant at 5,700. Probably get him a little bit as a mid-range value type on FanDuel, not at all on DraftKings at 5,500 point guard only. Kelly Oubre at 11.8. Ben Mathurin, if he plays, at 9.8. At least we won't have... I had tons of Mathurin last night. I was sweating that he wouldn't play. That would have been a massive change to have to make. As it was, I only had to make a few pivots around the Indy news and then a few more around... forget what the other piece was. But Yeah, it doesn't look like we'll have that FanDuel issue with Ben Mathurin. He'll be in some, but only 5% of the top 150 today so far. Power. That's because we were on him the day before and then kind of more off of him last night. And so of course he went out and performed last night. I talked about how I had him. I didn't trust him. I didn't like that I had him the night before, and I was hoped to get to him last night. I don't know how many shares I ended up with of him last night, but Conley's capable of that every now and then. Just nailing it is the tricky part. Okongwu on DK, somebody just mentioned him. 4,300 power forward and center. Looks pretty solid. 5.29 points per dollar. A lot of solid points per dollar at the forward spots on DK today. Look at all those fives. Top 14 guys average a 5.22 points per dollar. Average with a 19.06% win rate on average. And an average 21.76% exposure in the top 150. A lot of key guys right through this group. So Champagne, just a price-driven value play, right? Low usage, low per minute guy. 20-ish minutes could get you just enough to provide value. He's only 3,500 shooting guard and small forward on DraftKings. So I do think he's part of the play. He's projected for ownership as, kind of commensurate with this. We're getting to him ahead of where the field is. Like I said, maybe you trim it down. The field ownership was below this. It was like 10 points or so below this. So maybe you cut 15 points off that top 150 ownership. I think I'd be comfortable with that. Not that I want to get away from a guy who's a functional value play, but we've got a few of them. Chuma Okeke right here at 42. It's a $700 difference. Not all that different in terms of the projection, the upside, or anything else, or the trust. But I think there are a couple spots to pivot around that, especially if he gets out of control ownership, like 3,700 at small forward for Joey Ingles. Again, another guy, not anybody's favorite option there. Not all that different in terms of the projection in fewer minutes, but he's a reasonable enough facsimile of Julian Champagne. You can't tell me that Champagne's definitely going to go out there and blow the doors off of Joe Ingles' production today. It's basically a wash. So I think I take some of these shares, spread them around a little bit. But obviously we're talking about that is coming from the guy with the top win rate at the position on the slate. So it's all relative to this level of performance that you can expect from him, which is entirely created by this price. Sohan, 14.4% winner on FanDuel, just landing in 5% of the top 150. On DraftKings, much more relevant, 32.8%, 56% of the top 150. He's one of the more highly projected guys for ownership too. Looks like third overall on the slate. It's a little bit lower than his win rate, so we're winning with him. Call it 5-ish percentage points more frequently than he's owned. And we're getting to him a significant amount more than that. I think that's justified. If you wanted to say, hey, I'm going to come in at 40% in my top 100, in my 150 lineups, and I have 40% Sohan instead of 56. That's another, that's where you get down to making some decisions. As long as you still get yourself properly leveraged against the field on a good play like that, great. Obviously, you sacrifice edge the more and more you shave off how much exposure you have to those plays that math out well, like Sohan does. He's a 0.86 per minute guy on FanDuel, 0.88 per minute guy on DraftKings. Plenty of minutes available for him. We've seen him get there. I'm kind of talking myself into him just because I haven't really succeeded with him much, but I've seen him succeed on a lot of nights. I know he's capable of it. Point guard and power forward on the FanDuel slate, power forward only on the DraftKings slate. The flexibility over here is interesting, but he's not nearly as relevant to FanDuel. 14.4% and 5% of the winners. Okongwu, I mentioned over here on DraftKings, yes, 4,300 on FanDuel, 6,200, no thank you. Just 1.48% win rate, not in any of the top 150. But Saddiq Bey showing a lot of relevance in that same Atlanta group. 5,800 power forward and small forward on FanDuel, 5,500 both forward spots on DraftKings. 26% winner on DraftKings, right around that level for his top 150 exposure. On FanDuel, 36.9% win rate and 40+% of the top 150. Jalen Johnson also at that level. 31.5% win rate, 43% of the top 150. On DraftKings, 18.7, 29%. So we're getting to him a little bit more frequently than he's in those winning lineups on DK. Bay is owned below his win rate by a few solid handful of points. Johnson is owned below his win rate by a solid handful of points. So those are two guys I'm pretty comfy with, around these levels, 25 to 30% out ahead of the field. If you wanted to even put your foot down on the gas pedal a little bit more on those two guys, I think it's not inappropriate. AD from the star tier, 6.14% winner on FanDuel. Luxury item. Play him whenever you want. There's nothing wrong with clicking Anthony Davis as your last man in if you've got a good lineup that has 11.5 left to spend. It's just a little expensive, only 4.92 points per dollar on the FanDuel slate. On DK at 10.2, he's got a 5.41 points per dollar mark. 19.3% of the top 150, 16.4% win rate. Looks like the top overall star on DraftKings. You get a couple other nominal stars in Jason Tatum and LeBron James. I can't believe I just referred to those two guys as nominal stars. Two other absolute superstars. They're just a little bit underpriced. 97 for Tatum, 95 for LeBron, 13.1% win rate for Tatum, 12.7% for LeBron. Getting to them a little bit less than those numbers in the top 150. I think those are two guys that I could easily say I want to have a little bit more of those two than the field. LeBron projected a little bit below his win rate in terms of ownership. Tatum, I'm sure, is the same. Yeah, Tatum, single digits ownership. So just two very high ceiling players. Obviously, if you got anyone in that mix, AD, LeBron, Tatum, without some of their teammates, most specifically either LeBron or AD, one without the other, you can lean into that a little bit more. Since January 1, Tatum's been at a 1.43 FanDuel points per minute, 1.50 DraftKings points per minute mark. For the season, that's 127, 132. So we've seen a bit of a uptick over the last two and a half weeks from Tatum. And he was... Too many clicks. So what did I say it was? 143 in January. For all of last year, Tatum was at about 137 on the FanDuel scale. So I've got him basically between that number and his number for January. I've got him at 1.35. So slightly below last year's number, about a 0.08 of a point per minute below his current production for the month of January, and a little bit above the season-long production, which I think is about right. And it's not like it's creating a situation where he's blasting his way into a bunch of lineups that he doesn't belong in. I think that's appropriate for Tatum. LeBron, since the start of the year, has been at a 1.20 on FanDuel, 1.24 on DraftKings. For the season, he's at 1.38 on FanDuel, 1.41 on DraftKings. So over the last couple of weeks, LeBron's taken a little bit of a dip in terms of where I let that impact it. I'd been letting him get away with a little bit more. I give him a bit more of a haircut today. But let's see. So we're at, what did I just say? 138 for the season. And I took him down to 131. He was a 1.43 over the course of last year. 1.38 for most of this season. 1.31. 1.38. So I've got him at 131 today. I'm comfy with that. It's overperforming what he's done over the last handful of games. 245 minutes. It's LeBron. I'm not really, until we see an extended stretch of, and this isn't even like a massive downturn. It's a bit of a downturn. Couple not great games will do that. I expect him to come roaring back into the 1-3s very quickly, and will be perfectly fine. And if people get away from him because of a little bit of underperformance, especially when he's not crazy high priced, 10,000 at both forward spots on FanDuel, and again 9,500 on DraftKings in particular, 12.7% win rate. I can get to him a little bit more than where he came up in the top 150, and I can get to him a little bit ahead of the field. Jeremy Grant, plenty for him to do out in Portland. 25.5% usage rate, 0.93 FanDuel points per minute, 0.96 DraftKings. Landing at 12.6% of the winners on DK, 18.3% on FanDuel. More of a presence in the top 150 on the FanDuel slate, 14.6% of that, as compared to 8.6% on DraftKings. Just hits the DraftKings cap a little differently than he does on FanDuel. 68 against the lower cap versus 71 against FanDuel's. Hits a little bit differently, but playable on both sides for sure. And if you lose pieces from Portland, there's just more shots to go around. Miles Bridges looks okay on both sides. 12.1% winner on DraftKings, just 5% of the top 150. 13.2 gets him in about that number of the top 150 on FanDuel. Then we get Zion. Zion's actually looking pretty decent on the FanDuel board today. I wasn't expecting that. 5 points per dollar. 7,700 is relatively low. He's a 1.23 FanDuel points per minute player. On DraftKings is a 1.24. Looking decent over there. 12% win rate, getting to him a little bit more than that in the top 150. But this is significant on FanDuel. 22.3% win rate and getting to him at 42% of that top 150 lineups. That's interesting, frightening, compelling. It's the second best points per dollar at the forward spot on FanDuel, it looks like. His 5.0 versus 5.25 for Jalen Johnson. I suspect we'll see a lot of Jalen Johnson and Zion Williamson lineups when we flip over to the Sims in a minute. So Ingles is still showing value. I didn't notice this when I was talking about him before on the DraftKings side when I was comparing him to the Champagne play, but at 3,900, Ingles is landing in some of these FanDuel lineups. What's his... I'm going to jump to the FanDuel board in the background here real quick. Yeah, he's pulling ownership again. I didn't love the Ingles play the other day. I don't love the Ingles play again today. Went out and played 20 minutes, put up a 12. That's Joe Ingles, man. That is 12.2% usage, 0.84 points per minute. Even at 39, if he comes out and just does this again, you're obviously just shot in the foot. And I've got him only projected for 3 points beyond that. This underperformed the mean projection. But with 3 points of expectation for his standard game, this isn't going to get you there even at 39. It is a value piece. It's price driven, so it helps you get to the other guys around it. But if he's not going to do anything, that could definitely get ugly real fast again. I'll have him. It mass out correctly, but I do not love it. Just looking at where we are on him. What's he done? See, now I'm going to sit here and find a way to whittle half a fantasy point away from him, and it'll take him out of the one key lineup that I need him in when he goes out and puts up a 50. He's not going to score 50. For the month of January, 61 minutes is entirely irrelevant, 8.89. Got him at 0.88. I've got him right on what he's done. It's 0.85 for the season. I could take it down by, again, like a half a point puts him right at 0.85. It was 0.72 for last season. So there is some justification in saying you could cut this to, blend last year and this year, and you're at 0.79. Just doing it like, in a clunky way. So that would take almost exactly a fantasy point away, a little bit more than a fantasy point, which would have an impact. I'm not going to change it yet, but I'm going to keep it in mind. It is a play, but I mean, if there's, if the field's going to be there on that low usage a guy, it's, you can lock in around it so that you build out competitive lineups to the field. But I guess there's not a similar guy. I'm just trying to scan the board here and see if we've got anybody in that same range. Dougie McBuckets in 14 minutes at 4,000. Not really. Sub 10 fantasy point projection. I don't think so. Yeah, it's just price driven. But in my mind, that 31% win rate, that 37% exposure in the top 150, that comes with a massive asterisk for Joey Ingles. Yeah, I talked about that at the top of the show, guys. The sim was run before with the Indy guys. It was run before that news. So Nembhard and Jackson are out. Neesmith, Halliburton, Obi are questionable. Halliburton, Mathurin, Obi, Neesmith, questionable. Isaiah Jackson and Andrew Nembhard both out already. So, yeah, there will be some changes already coming from the Indy side. I don't know that it really creates crazy havoc, at least not right now. If we end up getting another 3 of those guys out, then yeah. If we end up getting another TJ McConnell day, then yeah. Right now, not really looking like that. Let's see, what are we going to lose? From where we've got him now, McConnell will pick up some additional minutes and additional value. Obviously, killer points per minute guy. But he'll probably pick up a couple of minutes. And then it's kind of easy to normalize these guys because there's just a bunch of guys that are like 28, 22, 24, 25. So like one of them steps out, you just spread minutes around to the other guys and it kind of normalizes things. And then they've got easy to plug in downboard guys like Jarvis Walker, Ben Shepard, who don't really play all that much, but can jump into a handful of minutes. So we'll see where it lands. I would say out of everybody who is already getting minutes, McConnell is probably, again, the most interesting one, but it's a matter of where he lands, and that's going to be a matter of who overall is available here. I have Siakam in, yeah. Mama. He's a $7,900, $8,100 option. Got him slightly below his per minute production for the season. I could give him another, it's like a half a point. Maybe a full point. Yeah, if I give him an additional full point, it puts him like at his season-long production. I just left it alone where it came up through the model for that one. But obviously a little tough to tell, totally new situation. Yeah, Steve, that's exactly why I'm not like mashing the get TJ McConnell shares. I had him going into this sim before that Indy news dropped. I had him at just a standard 14 minutes. I keep losing track of which of these guys are in and which of these guys are out. With Nembhard out, there's probably a couple additional minutes going his way. And then if you get some kind of a situation, no Tyrese or limited Tyrese, like you said, certainly there's going to be a big swath of minutes that pop open. So I do think there's minutes available for McConnell, but it would probably move him from 14 to 18, 14 to 20, something in that neighborhood. It's not a, oh my God, you got to have TJ McConnell. Like last night, by the end of all those changes, I was in the Discord. And it's another reason, be in the Discord. We try and shout those plays out. And I was saying McConnell, absolute priority swap. I ended up getting I think 70+% of them last night. Let me go back to the board that you guys can actually see. So where is Sayak? Doesn't look like he came up all that much. Yeah, there he is. Buried down here. This will change a little bit and has the potential to change more. I might give him that point to put him back to his season-long production. And then at 32, maybe there's a minute or so there, minute or two. Got to put those Jackson minutes somewhere. I just don't exactly know, having not seen what him playing next to Turner looks like. I don't know exactly where things fall. I don't know that it makes him a play. I think he's playable, but I don't know that it makes him like a must-have. 3.33 didn't land in any of the top 150 on FanDuel at 7,900 in the original run. Give him a little bit more than that. Maybe he makes his way into a couple of the lineups. Maybe this gets up above 5% win rate, but not crazy. On DraftKings, you're talking about maybe it gets to like 1. Maybe you get 1 share in the top 150. Again, totally playable and could go out there and debut with a monster. He's a very good player. 24.8% usage, 1.10 FanDuel points per minute, 1.12 DraftKings points per minute. Just not coming through the sim all that strong right now based on how he's projected. So we're up to Zion. Playable on DK. Looking more like a priority on the FanDuel slate, oddly. Not a big Zion fan. Aaron Gordon looks pretty good. 16.3% on FanDuel. Half that on DraftKings. 16% of the top 150 on FanDuel. A quarter of that on DraftKings. Paolo Banchero playing out of his mind since the calendar flipped to 2024. 13.97% win rate. 16% of the top 150. 7.8% on DraftKings. 5.3% of the top 150. Couple odds and ends guys. PJ, Christian Brown, Jonathan Isaac, Brandon Miller, Michael Bridges, we talked about most of those guys. DFS, Dorian Finney-Smith, 16.3% winner on FanDuel, 5,100. Both forward spots. It's another guy that I just don't love for DFS purposes. 13% usage rate, a 0.71 per minute guy. Price-based, though, it's okay. It's coming through. It masks out all right. 4,700 on DraftKings, power forward and center eligible. I prefer his positional eligibility on the DraftKings slate. But just a 4.49% win rate and didn't land in any of the top 150 for DFS. Tobias Harris has definitely had his games this season. I feel like we were on him more earlier in the year. I think his price corrected and normalized a little bit on the FanDuel side. On DraftKings, he's still very affordable. Just a 3.4% win rate, lands in 2.6% of the top 150. It's not zero, and there is definitely some upside there. Philly's still missing some pieces and parts. Harris obviously is, full-time starter anyway, but just maybe a little bit of a kick there for Tobias Harris. Where do I have projected relative to his recent run? He is a player I like getting to because I feel like the field doesn't love getting to Tobias Harris for whatever reason. Since January 1, Tobias is at 1.07 FanDuel, 1.08 DraftKings. Yeah, we could give him a little bit more than this, actually. Still got Melton out, right? Yeah, Melton's still out. Roko's out. Mobamba's out. I think I'm going to give Toby a little bit of his rate back here. That's about right. A little bit of an uptick coming for Harrison the next update. Not crazy. We're not. He's not going to become the play of the day by any means. The uptick I'm giving him is like a fantasy point. It'll get him a little bit above 5%, probably drop him into a few more of these winners, those top 150. Get him in the 2% range probably. He'll probably look more like this on DraftKings, a little bit less on the FanDuel side. But I think he deserves a little bit more. He's been playing well. KP, 6% winner on FanDuel, 2.9% on DraftKings. Just incidental lineups appearances if he makes it into any. Didn't on FanDuel, 1.3% of the top 150 on DraftKings. Neesmith, if he goes on FanDuel, is showing a little value, 12.17%, 5.33% of the top 150, 2.5% on DraftKings, didn't get to the top 150. Royce, oddly, hanging on to a little value on FanDuel, 4,800, both forward spots. None to speak of on DraftKings, 2% winner, but didn't get in the top 150. By the way, top 150 is, top 150 that ran 50,000 times in a pool of 24,000, however many lineups that we simmed over on our sim partner, acemind.io. Just because he didn't land in any of the top 150 in that run, you run the 50,000 and first one, he might get into the top 150 in that one because he does get into 2% of the winners over the course of the sim. So, I mean, there is, as those add up, maybe it does get him into, the 150th lineup, gets one additional win across 50,001 and becomes the 150th instead of the 151st. So some of that in terms of the how many times they were in the top 150, take with a grain of salt. You do want to pay some attention to the individual win rates and obviously the individual win rates against the field's exposure to those players. Herbie Jones, 9.5% winner on FanDuel for 5,400, shooting guard and small forward at 5,000 on DraftKings. Not really that relevant, just a 0.67% appearances in the top 150, sub 2% win rate. Differentiated guys, Kelly Oubre looking pretty solid on the FanDuel side, 11.8% winner, 8.6% of the top 150. About league average type of usage, a little slight tick above league average usage, 0.87 FanDuel points per minute, same rate on DraftKings. But at 58 shooting guard and small forward on DK, no value. 0.16% of the winners, 0.0% of the top 150. Nick Batum, also from Philly, same kind of a situation. Those guys are interchangeable parts in my mind right now. Batum a little bit lower end, 0.70 per minute versus Oubre's 0.87, and returns lower end results. But both guys mix and match type playable. Ben Mathurin, assuming he goes, I talked about him before, but again, on FanDuel, playable. Jalen, playable. A little bit of upside. Don't know what it looks like, though. Again, another guy potentially impacted in that Indy front court. Censor. So Okongwu looming kind of large at 4,300 on DraftKings. That is a massively different price. 43 versus 62. On FanDuel, you can throw him into a lineup if you want. I would probably do it at power forward and put him alongside like a Claxton, a Bam, somebody like that. But you really don't need him. 1.48% win rate. Didn't get into any of the top 150. Totally different across town. 31% win rate. Basically double every other center option. Yep. So among center eligible players, Okongwu has double the win rate of everybody else on DraftKings. That's significant. 36% of the top 150 is not going to be unpopular. He is fifth highest ownership projection, but our win rate eclipses that ownership projection by a solid handful of points. I would want to have Okongwu, I think, on DraftKings at that 36%. Excuse me, at that 36% of the top 150 or probably even higher. I don't think I would want to go down to the field's number. I think I would want to have more Okongwu than the field, especially just given how different he is than all the other players eligible at that position. AD I talked about earlier, but again, just plenty of star power, can always pay for him. 1.50 FanDuel points per minute for the season on FanDuel, 1.45 on DraftKings. Looks very solid on DraftKings today. 16.4% win rate. Got to him at 19% of the top 150. On FanDuel, 6.14% win rate. For an expensive star, you see it drop down to this level because of the impact these salaries have. But obviously can go out there and put up an 80 on any given slate and just break the thing in half. Last time out, 60.9 in 33 minutes. Standard type game. Since January 1, AD has been at 1.40 DraftKings, 1.43 FanDuel. So a little bit below this. LeBron has also been a little bit below his rates since January. Maybe it's a Christmas holiday season hangover for those two. But they both look very good, very, very playable in that game. Zach Collins looking pretty interesting. No Wemby today. 13.14% winner on the DraftKings slate, 21.3% of the top 150, 5.31 points per dollar at 5,700 at the center spot has value. I don't mind the idea of going double value centers, go like an Okongwu and a Collins. That's not bad. You're filling 2 roster spots with average 22.1% winner, total of 44.2% win rate. For 10,000, I probably could have done that one in my head for 10,000. Both guys going to have some popularity, but that lets you build out a lot of other positions with pretty strong options. Claxton, I get to a lot of Claxton. It looks like I'm going to be, again, 54% of the top 150 on FanDuel, 5.32 points per dollar, easily the top FanDuel mark for points per dollar at the position. 25.19% win rate, slightly behind Collins, just a fraction of a point behind Collins, but getting to him significantly more than Collins. One of the few center-only guys. Among center-onlys, there's Claxton, Nick Richards, Bam, Wendell Carter. Only Bam really is competitive there. Miles Turner down here, a little bit competitive. 10% win rate, 15% exposure. Bam, 12% win rate, only 6% exposure. I think he was popular on that slate. I think Bam was one of the ones when I glanced at it that stood out as, oh, he's more popular than we're getting to him in the top 150. Yeah, Bam projected for almost 5 times the popularity of where we got to him in the top 150 in that sim, which is interesting. Claxton is projected for basically the exact same ownership, and we got to him at like double his ownership projection. Just an interesting difference, but we're talking about, double the win rate for Claxton as compared to Bam, 25% versus 12 and change. So it makes sense. This is essentially double his popularity, and this is like a fifth of his popularity. Miles Bridges still has that center eligibility on the DraftKings board. Makes him kind of interesting over there. 12.19% winner, just 5.3% of the top 150, though. Nick Richards, 11% winner, 8.67% of the top 150. Both pieces from Charlotte. If I had just in a total vacuum, which one do you prefer? Miles Bridges is the better of the two players. He's the better overall guy with more minutes to play with. Certainly more usage, 23.6% usage versus a 12.6% usage. But Nick Richards obviously does, collect some fantasy points as well. Richards, a 15.7% rebounding rate, 70.8% true shooting for the season, averaging 7.6 rebounds. So there's capability there. I guess my overall point is I don't know how many times I want to put Miles Bridges at power forward and Nick Richards at center next to him. Same thing, small forward and center on FanDuel. On FanDuel, you don't really have to worry about it, though. Nick Richards at 64 doesn't really play all that strongly at center, just a 3.3% win rate, 2% exposure in the top 150. Jabari Walker looks interesting. 8.5% winner on DraftKings. Get to him about the same amount in the top 150 for 55 at power forward and center. On FanDuel for 56 at both forward spots, 30% winner, 38.6% of the top 150. That's compelling. 0.94 per minute for the season, just a 16.3% sub-average usage, and can give you that kind of a game. Just 14.2 in almost 30 minutes the other night. So another guy comes with a bit of an asterisk, but with some missing pieces in Portland already anyway, I think there could be some opportunity. Capella just looks minorly playable on FanDuel, a little bit more playable on DraftKings, 8.1% winner, but I think we're going to be soaking up a lot of center shares with these guys. 5% of the top 150 for him. Embiid is obviously, again, Joel Embiid is a luxury item, the best rates so far for the season, 1.85 on both sites per minute. That's bonkers. By the same token, Nikola Jokic, 1.7 per minute on FanDuel, 1.72 on DraftKings. You can always go to either one of these guys. Luxury items for sure. 12.4, 11.8 on FanDuel, 11.5, 11.3 on DraftKings. It's just the impact that those prices have. But they're obviously superstars. They're obviously among the highest ceiling if not the two highest ceiling guys on the entire slate. So 3% winner, or call it 4, lands in 2% of the top lineups. Call it 4, lands in 1.5% of the top lineups. They both look a little better on DK. A little bit more meat on the bone there at 6.46% and change of the top 150, and 7.6, 8.6% of the top 150. I have no issues if you wanted to go higher than that on either of those players. Those are the guys that you save money for by playing these scrubs of the world. DFS we talked about. Miles Turner I mentioned before, but looks very good on FanDuel. 10.6% winner, 15.3% of the top 150. 1.22 FanDuel points per minute on the season. 119 on DraftKings. Doesn't get you there quite as often, but is playable at 6,700. It's just a question of what the impact of his new teammate's going to be. Zinger, 6% win rate, but didn't get to the top 150 on FanDuel. 1.3% of the top 150 at 2.9% winner on DraftKings. Jalen I mentioned before, but again, 18 minutes projected. We'll see what that looks like in the end. 7.2% win rate, 1.3% exposure. I just don't know what that exactly what that front court's going to look like. That's right, I did have Isaiah Jackson only at limited minutes. So that won't even be all that many minutes to distribute around. I think that's most of the relevant guys. Again, Siakam will probably see a bit of an uptick. Jonathan Isaac, who we talked about the other day on that same Ingles day, not showing any of the value he was showing that day. 5.6% winner on FanDuel, 4% of the top 150, 5.4 on DraftKings, 2.6% of the top 150. Goga, I love the points per minute. He creeps into to value all the time. That said, he's probably correctly priced for the minutes that he plays these days at 6,100. 5,000 on DraftKings. There's a little bit more room for him as just like a sneaky center with crazy 50-point upside, even if he only plays 25 minutes. In 24 the other night, he put up 34.5 fantasy points, 1.05 per minute on DraftKings, 1.13 per minute on FanDuel, but can go out there on the right night and eat. Does he do that tonight against Philly? Probably not. Vanderbilt, a little bit more on DK, just power of the price, $3,500 power forward center. Gets you there 7% of the time in winners, but we only got 0.67% of the top 150. On FanDuel, he's not really a relevant option. I think that's most of everybody. Let's see what's going on in the chat. Am I doing an NFL show this week? Time do those games start? What do we have? We have 2 games tomorrow, 2 games Sunday. It's a 4:30 start tomorrow. I don't want to make any promises. Keep an eye out. Maybe. It really depends on my ability to fall asleep while it's dark outside, not when the sun's coming up, and what time I end up sleeping until in the afternoon. Just throws everything off. But if I'm reliably conscious at like 11, which shouldn't be too challenging, maybe I can jump on at like noon, 1, and knock out a quick show, cover all 4 games tomorrow. No promises on that one, Trey, though. It's a good idea, but no promises. I'm going to make sure to get all the content done tonight, though. Halliburton said it'll be available. Okay. Yeah, Collins starting. Collins looks pretty good. Mike Palm, what's going on, buddy? Mike Palm just got here, planning to play on 2x speed to catch up. I'll try and wrap the show up in the next 5 minutes so you don't run into after lock time then, Mike. I was going to do that anyway. Let me jump over to the Sims. Pull up DraftKings first. acemind.io for the Sims. Ace like the ace of spades. Mind like your brain. .io like input output. And they dipped the pricing, I saw, which is great. They were drawing in a lot of new users. And I think just the idea of A little bit more DFS for the people, not trying to break anybody's bank. It's kind of my philosophy about this. If I ever start, putting price tags on things, as I've talked about on many shows in the past, I don't think asking people for, 10 times the amount that they play in these contests is fair. And these guys are kind of approaching it the same way. So they reduced the prices on some of these packages. They've got some great offerings for basketball and football are up now. They've got PGA going. I know they're working on every other sport that's out there. So lots over at Ace Mine. There's a sim. There's an optimizer. We'll have some promo codes coming for you guys hopefully next week sometime. So this is the DraftKings board. I'm seeing a ton of Terry Rozier on there. A little bit of LaMelo creeping in. Here's a LaMelo and Rozier lineup that we talked about. So that can be successful. We've got some proof there. But most of them are landing with one or the other, it looks like. Not that it's like going through making that decision every time. But it does look like the most successful ones. Here's another one with both. There's another one with both. They do make it. So I think you can absolutely play LaMelo and Rozier next to each other, but both look like good plays individually. Decent spend at the point guard spot. LaMelo's, DeJounte Murray's, you do have a Reggie value there. You've got some Lowry value there. But Jamal Murray, Devin Vassal's not super cheap. Bogdan. There's more Bogdans. All right. I was getting worried there that I wasn't seeing Bogdan that much. He only lands in the shooting guard the one time because we get a lot of Terry Rozier there. A couple DeJounte shares there as well. A couple Julian Champagne shares there. There's another Bogdan down here. And then we get a lot of Bogdans over at guard. A few more over at util. He's in, if you look across the lineups, he's in basically like half the lineups that are on the screen right now. It's just in different spots where like Rozier was immediately obvious because they're all in this column. A lot of Jeremy Sohan coming through at the power forward spot. I like the Tobias here. And we'll see a little bit more of him. That was interesting, too, because he was... Yeah, 3.4% win rate. 2.67% of the top... Oh, fuck. I'm not showing you guys that, am I? I'm dumb. I sized the window. But I didn't show it to you. So you can see everything that I was just talking about now. Here's all the Rozier that I was talking about. Here are your too many clicks, man. Too many clicks. LaMelo and Rozier together, like I was saying. But for the most part, they are separated. Here's all the Sohan that I was referring to. This is where I was saying point guard, you get a little spend. LaMelo's, DeJounte's, but you do have a Reggie in there. You do have some Kyle Lowry values in there. But for the most part, it's fairly spendy at point guard. And then you've got your Bogdan shares. There's a couple in shooting guard. There's more in guard only. And then there's a couple in util. He's in a lot of these lineups. Sohan's in a lot of these lineups. But Tobias Harris was where I was at there. Just a handful of overall top 150 lineups, but he's in the very top lineup, and he's in this one. I think I saw him one or two other times as I was eyeballing this. Maybe it was down a little further. The fact that he hits, there he is. When he hits hard. Oh, that was the same one. So he's in the third best lineup, not the very top one. I had it scrolled down a little bit. But I think that helps support the justification for giving him a little bit more. A lot of DeJounte Murray, a lot of Hawks in general. Some Saddiq Bey, some Jalen. Definitely seeing a lot of Julian Champagne. That's, again, it was entirely price-driven. I expected to see him here. I just don't love the play in terms of the per minute, in terms of the usage. Could easily go out and disappoint. So overall, fair amount of spend at point guard. Terry Rozier, largely at shooting guard. Or you can go Bogdan, you can go DeJounte at that spot. But primarily Terry Rozier there. Looks mostly value-ish, but you do have the odd Jimmy Butler, Jason Tatum's in here, Tobias. But mostly some Julian Champagne, some Chuma Okeke. Bey and Miller are like mid-range types at the small forward. But I feel like small forward, by and large, you're taking value at small forward. Power forward, mostly Sohan here. But you get the odd Bancheros, a couple of Sadiq Bays, a couple of ADs, a couple of KDs. Center is just all value all day. Zach Collins, Nick Richards, Okongwu, Dom Barlow. I don't remember mentioning Dom Barlow. Barlow is a 4.28% win rate on DraftKings, 6.67% of the top lineups. He's only 4,300 at center. 4,300. And should be, some minutes available for him, obviously. Again, no Wemby for San Antonio today. It's interesting. I just hadn't seen him, wasn't expecting to see him all this far up the board. That said, there's not a lot of them on the board here. Most of his 6% are probably further down. So that was the center spot. At guard, you're just taking Bogdan, or you're taking like whatever of DeJounte or whoever, decent player, LaMelo, Rozier, whoever you didn't use over here, you're getting him over here. It's pretty straightforward mix of just a few guys at the guard spots, it looks like. Forward is also kind of similar to that, right? We're getting value. Forward and small forward, we're getting value plays. Good amount of Champagne. Some Okongwu. Oh, that's interesting. Not as much Okongwu as I was expecting. Wasn't he? He's in 36% of these. He's got a 31% win rate. I was talking glowing terms about him, but let's see how many do we have? He's in the very top one. That's encouraging, but... there he is. Okay. More of him at the center spot. I lose track sometimes. He's in there plenty. So yeah, Okongwu does look like a decent smash spot value play on DraftKings. Just a matter of where you get him. And then looks like we're fairly spendy at the util. Claxton, decent middle-class center. Jokic, obviously a superstar. Bogdan, not completely cheap, but not completely expensive. You get some Tatum in there, some Murray. Christian Brown, that's a weird one. Trey, Rozier, Ingles, Sohan, Embiid, Bogdan, Zion, and Christian Brown. Wow, you couldn't make a lineup that I like less. I don't think. That is a list of players who disappoint me, except for this guy. Keys to the kingdom. I mean, Sohan is in here all over the place. Okongwu's in here a decent amount. And Terry Rozier's in here a lot. And Bogdan. Did I say Bogdan? As we go down the board, some Zach Collins pops into the center spot a little bit more. A lot to work with. We'll jump over to FanDuel. We're past the 6 o'clock mark. I get too into breaking these things down. Let's see. Yeah, still Q-tag for Barlow. Still Q-tag technically for Zach Collins as well. That could get ugly real fast. Obviously, still no Charles Bassey, no Wemby. What does that look like in the event they don't play? I guess we get Sandro night if one of those two doesn't go. Sandro Momukleshvili. Close. Let's just hope that that's not the case. Sandro in his limited action this season has been a 1.10-ish per minute player. I've got him projected, but just for 2 minutes that I had spare just sitting there. Yeah, I don't know what else they would do. There would not be a lot of size on this team if Collins and Barlow didn't go, or if one or the other didn't go. And it could easily be Sandro over Barlow and just in general. Joker, what's the matter, pal? Joker just started whining. I don't think he liked the Sandro play. Yeah, Barlow's gotten a decent run of, what is that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 games. Over that stretch, he's averaged about 18 minutes a night over the last 10. Or Sandro doesn't really play at all. Mamu, as Trey says, yeah. What's that popularity that you're saying there, Trey? Bogdan, Murray, Okongwu. Those are all about in line with what we're seeing across at the side I have. All right, so just real quick running through FanDuel. I'm seeing a good amount of Devin Vassell on there. He was hitting it decently hard. Anthony Simons may or may not play. That might come off the top of the board, but looks like we've got plenty to spend at the point guard spots. Simons, Jamal Murray, Simons, D'Lo, Jamal Murray, DeJounte Murray, Reggie Jackson, DeJounte Murray is obviously a 1-and-1. Murray and Kyle Lowry is a 1-and-1, but most of those pairings are decently high end, middle class, high end. Shooting guard looks a little bit more discounted, at least in one of the spots. A lot of them are, it's either Devin Vassell, a couple of DeJounte Murrays in there, and then a couple of like odd duck Austin Reeveses or whatever. But then in the other shooting guard spot, I'm seeing a fair amount of Austin Reeves, some Grayson Allen, some Brown, some Joey Ingles. So it looks like you're going 1-and-1 at shooting guard, 1-and-1 at small forward, where we're getting a good amount of Bogdan. Jabari Walker was looking pretty good on FanDuel. Sadiq Bey was looking pretty good on FanDuel. A lot of Bogdan. And then, I guess non-tragic, because it's either like this is Bey and Bogdan, Jabari Walker, Bogdan, Paolo Banchero. So maybe it is a little bit double spendy at the small forward spot. Power forward, we're going to have tons of Zion there. A lot of Zion, Nick Claxton lineups. Zion, Collins, Claxton across the three big spots in a lot of these. But I'm definitely going to want to make room for Jalen Johnson. Some Sadiq Bey. Between the two, I prefer Jalen Johnson. Paolo Banchero, but we've got some small forward eligibility there, I believe, right? Yeah. If I can get like a Banchero here, Collins, Zion, Claxton, I don't mind that. Bogdan, this one, except give me Collins here. I think this is it, right? Yeah, I like that combination. Oh no, that's Sadiq. Hey, chill, buddy. I'm sure what I'm talking about is in here somewhere. But I like those. I like that combination a little bit, despite not really liking Zion all that much. Just the way he's hitting the board today, I think, is definitely going to make him a piece of the puzzle. And I take those plays, even when I don't necessarily like the player. Joker is either trying to warn me off Zion, or he's really enthusiastic about Zion right now. A lot of Nick Claxton. Some AD, some Turner. FanDuel looks a little bit balanced. Right? I mean, DeJounte is obviously a very high-end player, but not the most high-priced guy on the board by any means. Zion, high-ish end, and not crazy high-priced. Claxton is a middle-priced center. Boncaro is mid-priced. A lot of balance on FanDuel today. All right, with that, let me punch out 6:10. Let me get some updates in. Got a lot to account for, and I'm sure a lot more that'll be changing. Keep an eye out for any kind of notices about... whoa, didn't mean to do that. Keep an eye out overnight and into the morning for any kind of notices. If I do a pop-up show for NFL, I will make absolutely sure that you guys know about it. I'll drop it in the Discord. I'll send it out on Twitter, all of that. But come hell or high water, projections for football will be up tonight. Groups article will be done. I'll try and knock out like an all 4 games above below type column for that as well. Rankings probably not. I didn't do rankings specifically last weekend just with the chopped up slates. It's a little silly and cumbersome to do. But definitely all the usual content written wise will be up there. I'll try to get a show done, but we'll see. No promises there. With that, good luck tonight, gang. Hang out in the Discord. Pop into Discord. We're talking plays and changes all through the night. And just a fun place to be sometimes. So with that, follow the @rotoscouts Twitter handle and hit the like button too. Too much haranguing today. Begging you guys for stuff. I appreciate you guys. You guys rock. Happy Friday. Enjoy your weekends. Good luck out there tonight. Somebody go win something. I'll see you later.